Now, some call it the lowest point in West Indies cricket history. Others said they saw it coming, but all are still hurting from the West Indies' hasty exit from the ICC T20 World Cup in Australia. Defeats to Scotland, and then Ireland saw the Caribbean side missing out on the Super 12 stage. Days later, Cricket West Indies announced that head coach Phil Simmons will be stepping down. The disappointment calls for an examination of cricket in the region, and a man who can give us an insight into this is immediate past President Jamaican Dave Cameron. Dave, thanks so much for taking the time to speak with us.
Well, thank you, Renato. And it's been I've had many requests to speak, and I've decided to sit down with you. So I hope at the end of it, I'm expecting to give me some hard questions, but I want to give you a very heartfelt way of an analysis of West Indies cricket. Well, certainly from where I sit. And at the top of the show, just to say to you that while I may not be the only person in West Indies cricket that could, assist at this point in time, there are very few persons who have my qualification, having served at all the levels in West Indies cricket. And not just served, but contributed, including the Treasurer of Jamaica Association, president of a club. And so I'm well placed to understand all the machinations of West Indies cricket structure.
Yeah. I will ask you if you plan to take up back the presidency of Cricket West Indies, but not just yet. But where were you when all of this was unfolding? The whole West Indies losing and the Phil Simmons stepping down and all that.
Well, initially I actually didn't watch a game on Friday morning. And when I woke up, I was in shock, essentially. And again, let's be very clear, Zimbabwe beat Pakistan today, Ireland has beat England. But it's a culmination of what has happened in the last 12 months. Last year, we went to the T20 World Cup in 2021 in UAE, and again, we won one game. At the time, the region was saying that we should have brought a different type of team. The coach, the captain, the president came out and said, I know you are all the stakeholders and you are all the, the customers, but we who are selling you have told you that this is the best team at this point in time. And we went there and we came literally last in my estimation, which required us to have to go to a qualifying stage in order to qualify. So it's a culmination of that and seeing all of these things. And everybody keeps saying, well, yes, the test team has done well. But the test team has done well on the back of having a similar or the same team pre my office 2019 and the information that they would have received during that period. So the current administration said when they came in that we were focusing too much on test cricket and we were going to focus on white ball cricket. I don't know if you remember that comment. And so here we are today. And so it's a culmination of all of that. Having lost to Ireland a number of occasions and seeing the dismal performance of the players in different formats, it just kind of came to a head.
Karen Pollard since then stated that the decline in West Indies cricket started in 2016.
Yeah.
You were president during that time. You celebrated winning the Women's T20 World Cup, the Men's T20 World Cup, and the Under-19 Championship in 2019. Is that true? Did the slide start then?
The slide in West Indies cricket started maybe 20 years ago. If you want to look at that 6-year period from then to now, again, you could always use statistics to determine what to make the story that you want to paint. Between 2016, I think 2019, we didn't play a lot of bilateral cricket in ODIs and T20. We were playing test cricket and that kind of thing. Our rankings would have gone up. The 2019, if you want to look at the numbers since 2019, it gives you the same picture of a declining T20, declining ODI results. So it's kind of difficult to go back and say it started in 2016. But after 2016, some of the players decided that they would not participate again in Cricket West Indies activities. And so that may have been part of the reason.
The change of captaincy came after 2016. Darren Sammy didn't play again for the West Indies. We all know what he said after the final. Did that contribute to what is happening now in T20 cricket? Because certainly many persons felt that a lot of the senior players were left out of the West Indies setup during that time, and that contributed to what we're seeing now.
No, I would like to correct you. I don't think the players were left out. The players choose not to play. And we need to always go back and correct that. In 2014, we had a walkout of the players in India. We tried our best endeavors. And I'll just say that categorically. Prior to this, that was my worst day in West Indies cricket. I thought we would never be able to recover from that, but we recovered. We tried to mend fences with our players. And Renato, for the records again, let me say to you that I'm very passionate about West Indies cricket. I'm very passionate about winning. We were not winning prior to 2013 when I took office. We were probably where we are today in cricket in terms of our rankings. We haven't moved much. Our coffers were dry. And my own personality was that we needed to do something different. What we were doing just wasn't getting the results. So we had a conversation with the president of the Players Association, and fortuitously, we had the opportunity to change the payment system because the MOU with the Players Association had run out. We sat with the Players Association, we went through it. It took us a year to negotiate for them to understand what we were doing. And then we implemented a new structure. The mistake we made as an organization, where we didn't engage some of the senior players. But again, our excuse, our reason at that time was in previous administrations with WIPA, we never engaged the players. The players were all behind WIPA, and whatever WIPA said, everybody went along. Now, I don't know, maybe because of changing the nationality of the president of WIPA, he was not able to get the players to come behind him. But these things happen. And the lesson learned is next time, ensure that all parties concerned that will be affected are communicated with.
I certainly find it strange that not one or two, but maybe about 4 or 5 players would decide not to represent West Indies, not to be available after 2016. It must have gone deeper than that, though, Dave.
When you say deeper than that, in terms of what? No,
in terms of their relationship with CWI, because it's, let's not go around the issue. A lot of the players, they came out publicly and said they had an issue with you and your leadership. But I find it very strange that so many players would not make themselves available.
Well, so many. How many players?
We're talking about
let's call the names. Exactly, 4 or 5. 4 or 5. And
including the captain.
Including the captain. Yeah. And Renato, let us analyze that. While this is an interview that is being recorded, I'm sure you will have time to go back and check. But I want you to look at that 4 or 5 players, excluding Christopher Henry Gale, and look at the numbers of those players. They are not what we call world beaters in any format of the game.
Really?
None of them. Let's be very clear. Let's go back and look at it. So let's look at it.
Is Dwayne Bravo in that?
Well, let's look at the numbers. I'm just saying to you as a straight numbers.
Yeah.
And take the emotions out of it. We're not getting into names, but just look at the numbers. Look at the ODI numbers. Look at the T20 numbers. Look at the test numbers. Look at the numbers that what we call stars, international stars that could play in any of the teams, and tell me how you would rank them. So while we had good players and players that we could have gotten better, I don't believe our players were putting in the work required to take us to the next level. So after 2014, when we had that scenario, we implemented standards to represent West Indies cricket. Some of them meant you had to play in our domestic cricket, you had to undergo fitness tests, and these same players refused to play in our tournaments and refused to undergo the fitness test. And today, everybody's calling for that again. So it's an interesting dynamic. Right?
Let me put it this way. If you were to pick West Indies T20 team between 2016 and 2019, how many of those players would make that
Well,
team?
you see, again, you're comparing the West Indies team, the players within the West Indies team. And I'm saying to you, for you to be number one in the world, and this is how I think.
But we have to start here.
No, but that's the point, Renato. You're competing. And which high school you say they went to again?
Bridgeport.
Bridgeport High School. So, with no offense to Bridgeport, right? I started to play cricket when I was 12. I started to play cricket. I used to play football.
Oh.
And I went to KC. And the first day I turned out for Pepsi training, and I looked around me and I looked at all the players. I was like, you're not going to make this team. I started to play cricket. At the time, I was living next to Kensington. And so that's how I started to play cricket. By the time I was 18, 19, I'd gone to national youth trials on a couple of occasions. The point is that you have to know if you want to be the best. You can't be looking at the guys in the room, and we're ranked 7th. So we knew we had to improve our standards. And we communicated that to our players. I sat with, as a matter of fact, in 2013 when we took over, I took the players on a farm trip to Orlando. I don't know how many you remember it, because again, I was chastised for that they were going to India and I'd taken them for a joy trip to Miami. But that was really to say to the players that we want to change how we operate. Prior to this, players would be on one side and the president is up in his suite and there's no communication. So I tried to change that. We went to Orlando, then we went to Miami Heat games and stuff like that. And it was to say to the players that let's have a different conversation the way we do things. I think the players took that for a different angle, that, the president is soft or whatever the case is. I remember Rich Richardson commenting, because I drove on the bus with the players from Orlando to Miami, that no other president would have done that. So I didn't start being aloof, as what people would have said. I bowled to them. I played basketball with them in Miami. And, one former president remarked that maybe because of my closeness in age, that I'll be able to reach the players for the first time. Now, that may have then worked in reverse as well. So Renato, we've tried different strategies. The fact of the matter is that we didn't get through to a few players, but we're able to improve the standards.
We're going to pick up on that when we come back, because I need to find out more about your relationship with the players during that time. We take a break here from our discussion with former CWI President Dave Cameron. And welcome back to our discussion here about West Indies cricket with former CWI President Dave Cameron. Now, Dave, before the break, we were talking about the team after 2016 and comments made by former captain Karen Pollard about the slide in the T20 team. And you were making reference about competing against the rest of the world. Now, my question is, before we even get to competing against the rest of the world, I think those players in the likes of Chris and Dwayne and those players would represent the best that we had in T20 cricket at the time.
Agreed.
For them not to be involved in West Indies cricket, you said that they didn't make themselves available. That must have led to what we're seeing now with the position of the team.
But how would you come to that position? They were all invited to play in 2019. So okay, they didn't play for 3 years. From 2016 to 2019, they didn't make themselves available. And they came back in 2019 when I demitted office. And so tell me, what have those results been? And so, Renato, all I'm saying to you is that the challenge that we had and the challenge we've had as an organization is that we're looking at each other and saying, I'm better than you. And I'm saying to you, for us to improve and to get back to world standards, to be able to beat Australia consistently, we have to be looking at Australia and England and India. And you keep having the conversation about those in the room. And that is the problem. So they get up and they say, well, I'm better than you. And I'm saying, look at the numbers. Apart from Christopher Henry Gale, tell me which other world-class player we've had out of that group. World-class. I mean, could make any other team in the world, the top 3 teams in the world. And
International teams.
International teams, and that's what we were striving for. So we looked at the fitness standards around the world. We looked at statistics for batting, bowling, etc. The argument that young Bravo, that whole misunderstanding, right, was because his contract was reduced. And his contract was reduced based on his numbers. It wasn't something, nobody sat down and said, we feel like reducing his contract amount. We had very strict and very straight, procedures and numbers and policy. If your volume of runs is this, your volume of wickets, your catches, your whatever, you get this contract. And so everybody in West Indies cricket, after 2014, wrote their own contracts. There was no limitation on how many contracts, how many persons could get A, B, or C. But we said, if we're going to get West Indies cricket back to this level, then we need players that's producing this kind of...
So you're saying that a lot of the selections were driven by statistics?
All.
How would selectors explain Chandrika from Guyana, who debuted at Savannah Park against Australia?
All of them were done by numbers. I'm not gonna get into that because I wasn't part of the selection. Yeah. I wasn't, but I remember that Chandrika was doing well in regional cricket.
At that time, I doubt he had scored a first century.
I'm not gonna get into that. But I'm saying to you, if it was just on a numbers basis only, then we would need selectors, right? But I'm saying to you, selectors would do the numbers first. And then they would then look at all the other factors. But Bernardo, let me say something to you. To say that all the selections were done on merit, that was the instruction. Let's be very clear.
Yeah.
But I always challenged my selectors. I never picked anybody. I didn't drop anybody. But I challenged my selectors. I said to them, ensure that we are winning. So whatever team you put out there, you must be able to win, and you must be able to back it up. During our time was the first time that selectors had to face the press. So selectors didn't just select a team and disappear. They had to explain to the press why they selected who. Myself, we did a lot of town hall meetings to face the people, to have these discussions. So the one word I'll say to you that is different from the administration and today is merit. And that is where we parted company. So former players felt that they should be selected because their names are X, Y, and Z. And I'm saying to you, if you're not producing the numbers today, then it's going to be difficult because we have youngsters. And if you and I numbers are the same and we're 10 years apart, then why do I keep giving the older guy the opportunity? So the selectors will make that assessment at some point in time.
Yeah. Coaching. I remember when this administration came in that they made some reference in their 10-point plan about coaches and developing coaches and going to local coaches, meaning coaches from within the region. In your estimation, do you think that they made a mistake there? And have they?
No, if you're developing coaches, that can't be a bad thing. That's always something that we were doing. We were trying to find a coaching manager that we felt could deliver the information. But part of the system we introduced in 2014, we've had more coaches, regional coaches, than any other time in the history of West Indies cricket. As a matter of fact, there are 3 KC old boys, and I have to big them up, who are part of the West Indies coaching setup on a permanent basis now, which is Andre Coley, Robert Samuels, and Richardson.
Andrew Richardson.
Exactly. That whole opportunity was as a result of the franchise system that we brought in 2014, which now the franchise were required to have full-time coaches, and with CPL, there's more opportunity for coaches. And of course, we have to upskill them. If you're gonna, again, it's all about world class. If you want to have world class players, you have to have world class administrators and coaches are part of that.
Talent is talent here in the region, and here's why I ask. And what are we doing to develop our talented players? 2016, when we won the under 19 World Cup. Since then, we've seen Shimron Hetmeyer, we've seen Azar Joseph,
Right.
Kimo Paul in the West Indies senior setup.
Was that the team, the young man from...
Odin Smith was in that
Odin
team
was
as well.
that. There's, what's his name from St. Martin was in that team?
Casey Carty
Casey Carty.
was in that team as well. And
As
Casey
well.
Carty finally now, I think, in the West Indies A setup and
Right.
playing for the West Indies as well. But have we developed those players? Tevin Imlach was a part of that, was missing for a while.
Yeah.
Ryan John saw him playing regional cricket. But have we done enough to develop our young talent and to get them to the standard that you spoke about, where we can compare them? Rishabh Pant played in that under-19 World
Yeah.
Cup. He's playing for India now. What's happening?
When all of it is resources and where the resources come from. To sit here and tell you that we've ever had all the resources to do everything we wanted to do, you know, that's always going to be a challenge. But if you go back to 2018, 2017, we had about 3 teams playing cricket at the same time. We had a team in Canada playing in the Canadian League. I think they won. I came second. When we had a Canada
Yeah, I remember
T20
that
tournament. Yeah, that included Rutherford,
team. Yeah.
Fabian Allen, and a couple of those guys who have now since come through into West Indies cricket. We had an A team on the road, and we had a test team playing. So we were doing that, but a big part of the franchise system, which has not worked, and you know, I have to take responsibility for that, and everybody around the region has to take responsibility for that, is that the franchise system, the reason why we changed from an island team to a franchise team is most and more importantly for them to include and recruit the best talent. Okay? It has not worked. You know, what has happened is that every country has kept their players rather than recruiting the Casey Cartys and the Imlachs and whatever. And it has worked in maybe, if I could give you 2 or 3 players it has worked on. Left-hander open now. Myers.
Kyle Myers.
Kyle Myers.
Left to Barbados.
And Holder, who left Barbados as well, ended up in Guyana. And our own,
Odin?
No man, not Odin, our batsman. Middle order batsman.
Bonner.
Bonner.
Yeah.
Bonner.
Yeah.
Bonner went and played around the region for a number of years
Yeah.
before coming back here. So those are 3 examples where it had worked. Had those players stayed in Barbados, if it was just a Barbados team, Reefer and Mayers would probably never have seen the light of day today. So it worked in those 3 instances, but overall, the idea was that you'll take your best under 19 players coming out of the system, and they would be looked at for places within the 6 territories in the 90 players. And those that you need to move on, we move on. And there's an opportunity to still play. There's an opportunity to still play, but you would retain those and then give them the information in order to make them into world-class players.
I'm going to ask you about the financials because there are franchises complaining about the financial model and making
course.
money, and also the high-performance program when we no longer have the high-performance center. But we're going to take another break here from our discussion with former CWI President Dave Cameron. And welcome back. We continue our discussion here with Dave Cameron. Dave, before the break, we're talking about the youngsters, and I want to ask you specifically, and also the PCL. We moved away from a high-performance center, and you introduced a high-performance program where territorial boards were basically given the responsibility to develop players and to develop a system that will
No,
allow
the
players
system.
to-
No, the system we had developed the program.
system in the sense that to
Internally.
create their, yeah.
But that was disseminated for the coaches to do the work, required work, under the instruction and guidance of that.
Did it work though?
Again, we just spoke about the 3 players that I can identify, that I can remember in my mind that came out of that system. It hasn't worked in some of the territories, and I'm not going to single out any country right here, but 2 of the countries it has not worked in did not submit a business plan. When we did the franchise system, we didn't just get up and say, this is, we're creating a franchise. We had a specific agreement. We had deliverables from each island, each territory, each country, that required them to do a business plan. We always said we will never be able to give the territory all the resources, but they need to start to look at how we're going to grow that franchise into a business model. And it's simple. We took it away from being a national team for those reasons, because the national team has certain limitations that they could do with players, etc.
Which 2 territories did submit?
No,
a
I don't
business-
want to get. I don't want
And,
to get
and
into
if they
that.
didn't
I don't want to
submit
get
a
into that.
business plan, what? Couldn't you do something, sanction them or something?
Well, I see again. could I?
Could CWI
That's
at the time
absolutely
sanction these?
But it
these
requires
territories?
people
Because you need
and-
a full buy-in.
Absolutely, and there were discussions. So we had a governance committee, we had a compliance committee, and the compliance committee is where these things need to happen. You can't ask
Was action
Dave
taken?
Cameron to. No action was taken. No action was taken, and they continue to get all the requirements. And to date, I'm not sure if they've actually
that
submitted
sounds
it.
like a
There's
situation
also
that could have been-
situations where countries were supposed to submit financials. We had discussions and numerous meetings about these things. And as a group, body collective, nobody would sanction each other. So those are some of the
didn't
challenges.
you see that
now.
as a problem?
Absolutely.
So why wasn't it?
Yeah,
fixed?
because again, Renato, the structure of West Indies cricket is of such that the 6 shareholders appoint the president, right?
Yeah.
The president and the board of directors appoint a CEO. The CEO is the one who's supposed to ensure that these things happen because he has a job to do. He has a job to deliver on. And so that's where the buck stops. You can't come back to the president. We've agreed the policies. And the CEO is now to ensure that...
Was it
these
maybe that you
effective.
didn't want to upset them? That they might
Well, it
move
can't
away
be,
from
but that's what I'm
supporting
saying, Renato. We all have our responsibilities and accountability. We've agreed. We did strategic plans and everybody agreed the strategic direction. This is not something that I came to the board with. Right. We agreed the strategic direction. We had our plans, we had our pathways. And now we had people internally that need to execute. The failure of that execution can't only be yours truly. Okay. I take responsibility, but it can't only be myself.
You made comments about PE teachers.
Yep.
And you made specific reference to Jamaica, that when
Yep.
you went to school, there were a lot of male PE teachers who
Yep.
were involved in cricket, and
Yep.
now there are a lot of female
Yep.
PE teachers who
Yep.
aren't really interested in cricket.
Yep.
How do you think that? You got a lot of flack for that.
Yeah, let me go back to that article, and I encourage you one day to read that article. It was actually a sit down with making.
I did read it.
Yeah, well, and that was a small item within the thing, and
because
it's
you also
interesting.
spoke about space and
This is not about knocking women. The reality is that there are more teachers that are female in our entire system. It has nothing to do with PE or otherwise. Mm-hmm. Cricket is a difficult sport. Most women don't watch cricket. Most women don't participate in cricket. So therefore, if most of our teachers are female, then the likelihood that cricket will be taught is less. This is not a knock on, it's not to say what it is a knock on, it's our men for failing us. Because the truth is, this is one of the big issues in Jamaica. It's not a cricket issue, it's an issue that men in our society is failing us.
So is the could you take from that to say that there are a lot of men now not interested in cricket too?
No, there are a lot of men who are not interested in just generally in advancing. I mean, we have a massive crime problem, Ronaldo. This is all part and parcel. Cricket is just a microcosm of our society. So we need to look at that. It's not, look at our schools.
Yeah.
When I went to school, most of my teachers were male. But today, it's not so. No, and I'm not advocating for any less women. I'm saying we need more men.
Yeah. I'm moving on from that. You about coming back to the point that you made about territories not fully buying into the high performance role.
Oh, by the way, I must say to you, no, this is important. The fastest growing segment of cricket is women's cricket, female cricket. So let's be very, so understand that as well. So it's not in Jamaica,
Yeah.
worldwide. And the ICC actually did, and I've been doing a lot of work to grow that participation as the fastest growing segment. So I just want to make it very clear that, and in everything that I've done, I've included women in that to make sure that we've grown.
The boards, are they contributing to the poor state of West Indies cricket now? Because if you produce mediocre cricketers in Jamaica, in Guyana, in Trinidad, that means the West Indies senior team will only get poor players. Should more of the responsibility be placed on the boards of what we're seeing in West Indies cricket now?
Well, Ronaldo, that's a rhetorical question, right? Yeah,
No,
because some people don't like to hear this, but the West Indies Cricket Board, Cricket West Indies, is really a marketing organization. If you think about it in its purest sense, it takes the resources given by it from the territories, puts a team together, and markets it to the world. The resources that comes back, the development is done through the territories. Before 2018, 19, Cricket West Indies didn't have a head office, didn't have a headquarters. We now have a headquarters at the CCG, which we purchased back in 2019, 2018. So the truth is that in its purest sense, it's a marketing arm that takes the resources. And so all the development, you're correct, all the development
So shouldn't
has
these
to be done.
presidents be put under more pressure?
Absolutely, absolutely. And this is some of the challenges we had. And the public, rather than giving kudos to those who are performing, what we got was this country doesn't have any player in there and that country doesn't have any player in there. And I'm going to single out two countries in this particular instance. Guyana and Barbados were the two countries that produced a business plan before anybody and has worked to it. And prior to the franchise system, Guyana had never won regional cricket for a very, very long time. And since then, Guyana has won more regional tournaments than any other team.
To bring it close to home, Jamaica cricket
Yeah.
and the poor state of Jamaica cricket now, doesn't it concern?
You're saying that there's a poor state?
I think it's clear for everyone to see.
Okay.
We haven't won anything in a long time on the men's side. The women, they've won 2 T20 regional titles in maybe the last 10 years or so. But it's poor. If you ask persons around the country, it's poor. Doesn't it concern you? Because you're still affiliated with Kensington.
No, I'm still on the committee at Kensington, so yes, I'm past president. It concerns me a great deal. It has concerned me. But again, when you speak to people on the ground, they don't use performance to judge the performance. So I'm not sure what do we do. We are in a, I think we were judged on performance. Well, maybe not, because we won so many titles and yet still we're out of office. So clearly it wasn't performance. But what else do you judge a sporting body on? It's performance. I heard the other day one director saying that they're not responsible for schools cricket because somebody was lamenting that the number of schools have reduced dramatically especially in the Headley Cup.
Yeah.
And the comment was that schools cricket is not our purview.
As a former West Indies, immediate past president of Cricket West Indies, couldn't you maybe play a bit more?
What would you like to see me do right now?
I don't know. Start a Dave Cameron Academy. I don't know. But as someone who, based on what you're saying, your success at the West Indies level, you've won, as president, the West Indies, they've won titles. You're Jamaican. It concerns you.
Yeah.
Isn't there anything you could do?
Yeah, and we are doing that. Myself and Richard Pybus and Courtney Brown, we have teamed up and we've decided that we need to create something to replicate what we've done for Cricket West Indies in a controlled environment. Obviously, part of the challenge with cricket is that cricket is the only sport in the region that gives a player everything from the time they make any one of the national teams. And let me say it on air for those of you to hear. You know, if you make the national under 15, I think is where we start. Cricket West Indies pays all the airfares. We outfit the uniforms, and we give them per diem, and we pay all the accommodation. Now, there's very little sport as an amateur basis in the region that the governing body does all of that for.
Is that the makeup of your next CWI team? Richard Pybus and Courtney Brown?
No, well, I'm not getting into the makeup, but I only deal with people who are proven performers. So I believe that Courtney, you know, Courtney.
Before you explain the Courtney thing, because I'm going to ask you when we come back if you are going to once again run for CWI presidency. We'll be back from our discussion here with Dave Cameron. All right, welcome back to our final segment here with our discussion with former CWI President Dave Cameron. Dave, before the break, you were talking about yourself, Richard Pybus, and Courtney Brown, and the way forward that you want to see cricket. But the question here is, will you be going back for the presidency of Cricket West Indies?
And I know you don't want to hear it, Renato, but the ownership of Cricket West Indies are the 6 territories. And I had to make that elusively clear to the government ministers, the prime ministers in the region. Any changes that we want to effect, we have to sit down with them and have a conversation about it. I believe I still have a lot to offer. I believe we have tremendous challenges outside of the region, which we had started to look at the ICC, and I think I haven't seen anybody look at those things since I left. Interestingly, former chairman of ICC endorsed me on LinkedIn this morning. I didn't ask him for that, and you know, that just told you the kind of impact I had at the ICC and trying to change world cricket, because our problems start with how the commercials are distributed and rewarded in world cricket. It's less about, and everybody keep focusing on, you know, I believe with discussions, etc., continuously, we can get good people and we can get results, and we can create merit within the structure within Cricket West Indies, within the territories. But if we have no resources and no way of getting resources, because now we are ranked a minnow, we won't get games, with the top teams, and the only time we earn is when we host. And so if you're on the road all the time playing and you're not earning, then what does that say for you as a business? When this came very, very clear to me back in 2016 when we won 3 championships and we were not able to increase the fortunes of Cricket West Indies. So if you're in the business of sport, and that business is cricket, and you're winning, so everybody keeps saying spend more money on development to do all these things, and you're not able to increase your revenues, then how do you continue to spend more? So those are the hard questions, I believe, the elephant in the room that needs to be had. Because
But before you get there, I don't think
Yeah.
you've given me a straight answer regarding if
but I
you
think
want,
I think
if
I
you
have.
want to.
I think I have.
But have you?
I think I have.
What will it be? Will it be the shareholders, the 6 shareholders, as they call it? Reach
Yeah, well,
out to you to say
you
that
need four,
Dave,
you
we
need
need
at
you to
least
come
four.
back.
You need at least four.
Have you contacted anyone?
I've not contacted anyone at this point in time. No.
So you're thinking
Well,
that if
elections
it is that they are serious,
elections
that they
are
should
in
contact
March.
you.
Elections are in March of next year.
Yeah, but
There's a lot-
at this
there's a lot
time,
of
with the
time.
disappointment of the West Indies team, you think that no, they would be reaching out. to
Well-
say. Persons are already calling for the head of the current president.
Well, again, I would think that most of them they probably still think they know how to fix what's going on.
How many of the board members, how many of these presidents and board members that are currently still there now, who were there when you were president? And if it is
I
that,
think it would be Barbados, Trinidad, Guyana, Windwards, Leewards.
Yeah.
The only one that has changed. No, not Guyana.
Guyana
the only
would
one
have
that's changed.
changed,
That's
yeah.
the only one that's changed.
if it is that, as you accepted, that some of the blame should be on the different territorial boards, then if they even decide to go beyond Skerrit and let's say they contact you, what confidence should the persons in the region have if it is that it's the same board members?
Well, again, as I'm saying, the conversation needs to change. We have to get to a merit-based organization, and the conversation around West Indies cricket needs to be merit-based. We need to move away from my own country. So I remember when I met with the Jamaica Cricket Association the last time in 2019, soliciting their support. The issue they had was that most of their members around the table were not participating in West Indies cricket. And my response at that time was that the Jamaica cricket was failing as an organization. So therefore, if I'm looking for persons who are doing well and moving the cricket forward, then Jamaica cricket was the last place I was looking.
If you go back to West Indies presidency, would you put more pressure on these boards that they need to change the way they're doing things?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I think they all accept that now. I think they've all accepted that. But it can't be. There's no silver bullet. There's no Dave Cameron. Let's be very clear.
Yeah.
It requires team. It requires discussion, and that's what I try to explain to the prime ministers. Doesn't matter. And Skerrit was going to go in there and change the structure. He can't do it by himself. It requires a discussion. It requires persons understanding how the organization will benefit once you change the structure. And more importantly, is resources. So if you're asking territories, individuals to give up a seat within the organization, how does it impact their own organization financially?
You spoke about the ICC and your good work. And we all, in a report that probably shouldn't have been made public, but was made public, an audit when you left office, that one thing came out that you received, what was it, $50,000 for your great work and going
from
beyond.
WICB.
From WICB,
From
because
WICB.
going on beyond the call of duty
Absolutely.
in all that. What's come out of that audit? Because your name was called in it. The appointment of a COO with a CEO who is doing the same job.
I'm still waiting to get the copy of the report.
You haven't received it yet?
Have not received a copy of the report. We filed a matter to receive the copy of the report, and to date we have not received the copy of the report.
You
So
called it a
probably
smear
know.
campaign. Was it?
Well, obviously. What I remember, one of the items against me was the purchase of the CCG.
Did it look bad?
No,
today.
today, all I'm hearing is that the CCG is one of the greatest investments we've ever made.
The report or the audit was labeled as damning. I think Cricinfo said that it was a massive hole for Cricket West Indies. How do you get the region now to trust you if it is that
Well,
these shareholders decide that you are the way forward?
That was not a surprise that we had a massive deficit. That was, again, if that was a surprise to
Because it
to
was
the,
based on projections?
absolutely. So if that was a surprise to the persons who went into office, then again, I'm really alarmed that they didn't understand what was going on. We had lined up a massive bond offer with Sagicor for $30 million that the board had signed off on, and we were negotiating it because we had what we call the bad years. Whenever we don't play England and India in Test cricket or with a certain number of games or ICC distributions, we lose massive amount of money. So we had already lined up a $30 million bond. And just let me say it to you, so when we talk about damning, when I got into office in 2013, there was no bank in the region that would have done business with Cricket West Indies. No bank. Our bankers were out of Pakistan, based in London. And within that time, we started to have the confidence of every bank in the Caribbean. Now we have facilities from RBC and RBTT and all of these facilities.
You weren't supported by Cricket West Indies in your bid to become chairman of the
No, I was not.
Of the ICC. I knew you said that you were disappointed with that, but is a big three or the system of the ICC, is it hurting nations like the West Indies? How it's going to run?
Well, the first thing I'll say, and I can say this publicly because I've said it in the boardroom on a number of occasions, the ICC is not the governing body for the sport. The ICC is no different from Cricket West Indies, where the members get together and depending on who is stronger gets their way. If you look at the composition of the committees, the composition of the staff, it reflects pretty much the strength of who is sitting at the head of the table. And that's one of the challenges. That's one of the drawbacks. The other thing I'll say to you is, in my mind, cricket has not benefited from external eyes, external expertise, has never ever benefited. If you look at all the boards in the world, they're made up of former cricketers. So the thinking, the focus is always on how do we protect Test cricket, how do we protect ODI, rather than saying we're living in a commercial world. So, for example, we were told back in maybe 2016, 2017 by our major broadcaster that in India, the audience is only watching 16 minutes of each game.
I'm going to wrap up soon, but I have to
Sure.
get in this. The coaching situation with Cricket West Indies.
Yeah, want me to go as coach?
You
No, I don't.
Well, I don't know. But
would
you commended the step from Phil Simmons to leave the post. Where should the West Indies look now, as far as the coaching is concerned?
Listen, my view has always been the best man available that we can afford. This was something that was heavily criticized. We went to Bennett King years ago and we've started to recruit outside of the region. My view is the best man that's available for the job. I don't know who is available, but the best person that can take West Indies cricket forward and our players.
The Webby report, have you seen it?
Not really. I haven't delved into it too much.
He spoke about governance and changes in governance of West Indies cricket. Will that be something that you take on? Should the stakeholders
I'm not so
and
sure.
what's the way forward?
I'm
for
not
West
so
Indies?
sure that the governance, again, I haven't heard anything about governance now that our team is out of office. I'm not so sure governance is the way forward. And that governance thing became a big issue in 2014 after the walkout of the players. Prior to taking office in 2013, we went and met all the prime ministers of the region, explained to them what we were doing. So now the governance is evolving. Governance is not static. What was required last week is very different from what's required tomorrow. So governance is evolving. So I'm not so sure that we wouldn't take on the Webby report. We took on the Patterson report. I think my memory escapes me. We did 47 out of 62 recommendations, and we went further. We changed the name. We did all of these things that were part of the report that was recommended by Patterson. The problem is that the organization, the one thing in my mind that will change everything that we do is if we look at merit.
Yeah.
If we select people on merit, the players, the coaching staff, the administrators, then I think we'll begin to change it.
I think the perfect way to end it, Dave. Thank you so much for taking the time out and speaking with us. And of course, if it is that you do get the call from the shareholders, that you will share that with us.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for having me.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. And that's it for a discussion here with former West Indies president, Dave Cameron. Will he be going back for the presidency? Time will tell. Thank you so much for watching.